Alright, well, let's talk about some other things. How about a January purchase? How about that? Always late on this, but there's not really much of these late purchases to talk about. But anyways, here we have Kingsley's Adventure for the PS1. I was able to get this for free because I traded in a duplicate of Mario Party 3 for the N64. And, you know, this was like $50 and they gave me like 55 or so trade-in store credit. So, yeah, I was able to get this for free. This is a game that I've been interested in since early 2014 when I saw Pete Dorr stream it on Twitch. And, you know, I have been kind of on the ball a lot with these Psygnosis PS1 games. And in this case, you know, because it was touted a lot as a 3D platformer. Is it? Yeah, but it's also, of course, as the name would also suggest, an adventure game, and a genre I haven't really delved into too much. And as for this, well, it took me a while to actually, like, sit down and, you know, play this and give it a shot, and I like it. I really do. I say that about a lot of games, don't I? But it's actually very clever, you know, it had some pretty good puzzle solving and whatnot. But again, I've only played till the 4th level, and I got to the boss, and I didn't beat it because the boss is fucking stupid. I've been meaning to give it a shot, but, you know, unfortunately this game has been kind of delayed and on the back burner, so it's like, it'll probably be another while till I actually give it a shot, because I do want to primarily play this game in the summer, but it is quite nice, you know, it's definitely a very satisfactory effort, and just admirable game overall. Here's a April purchase. This is Bomberman World, also for the PS1. This is a game that I put less time into, but I was able to get the basic gist of it. But like Kingsley's Adventure, I should have played this more. It's, of course, you know, your standard Bomberman affair. It's got 5 players, which is nice. The FMV intro, though, is pretty ugly and disgusting. I didn't like it at all. But the gameplay's really solid. You just go around, and of course, your standard Bomberman maze, sometimes with multi-tiers, and, you know, you basically, like, collect a crystal, you know, you blow up everything up to collect either a crystal or crystals, and then, you know, the exit to the stage opens up, and then there you go. Like traditional Bomberman, and even in the case of, like, Bomberman Generation, you have power-ups, you know, for your, you know, speed, the amount of bombs you drop, and, you know, the power of your bombs. Which, of course, makes sense, you know, like, that's how Bomberman's always been. But again, in a single-player game, I'm very kind of iffy about it, especially when you lose it all, when you die. Again, I see where they're coming from, but I'm kind of very on the fence on that sort of mechanic. It really didn't work out in Bomberman Generation, I can tell you that much. But this, I don't know. But definitely need to revisit this and give this more of a shot. It seemed like the most interesting Bomberman game to me, besides Bomberman Fantasy Race on the PS1. At least most interesting Bomberman game out of all the Bomberman games on the PS1. So, yeah. Oh, don't you dare fall on me. We'll just put it there. Now, how about an actual, like, recent purchase? Here we have NBA Basketball 2000, also for the PS1. I got this in August. I mean, I guess it could also be known as Fox Sports NBA Basketball 2000. What a great name. That's fucking literally National Basketball Association Basketball 2000. There were other, like, Fox Sports games like this. Like, in the manual, you can see they advertise NHL Championship 2000. And they also made Fox Sports Soccer 99 and Fox Sports Golf 99. But it wasn't in the same package design style. The game is not too bad. It's pretty decent. I don't really like the free throw mechanic, you know, like the meter on that. I just find it to be confusing and weird. What's interesting is that there isn't necessarily a way to run, but if you tap triangle, you know, you gain speed, so that was actually kind of different. But all in all, definitely a decent playable basketball game, though. Here's also a recent purchase. I actually bought this in September. This is Gran Turismo for the PS1. Now, for a while, I actually had this game, but it was only the disc, you know, because I got it for free along with, you know, like, almost half of my PS1 collection. So, of course, I wanted to, you know, own it in its case. And yeah, there it is. As you can see, of course, it's a dual disc case, despite being a one disc game, because it has to hold the two manuals. And as you may know, this is of course, the best-selling game on the PlayStation 1. It sold 10 million copies, compared to the best-selling game on the N64, Mario 64, which sold 11 million copies. But then again, you obviously have more options on the PS1 than the N64. I've never been into, I never got really huge into, simulation racing games. Every time I played it, I just kind of, goofed off and, enjoyed it for what it is rather than actually seriously get into it and, unlock all the cars and whatnot. But regardless, this game is, of course, it's important, as is the series to, the PlayStation brand in general. I don't know how this version holds up compared to other games, but, it got amusement out of me. The arcade racing is there. There's, of course, simulation racing. It's, of course, a very, admirable, important game for the console. But I wish I could tell you more about it if I was more familiar with the genre and the series. Okay, we're making okay time. Let's see. Here we have ATV Off-Road Fury 3 for the PlayStation 2. I bought this freaking in August, basically because I actually saw this game on a speedrun.com as the recent entries, recent runs, and it was because of that I was like, now I kind of actually want this. It actually looked decently fun, and it is pretty decently fun for the most part. It's again one of those racing games that locks you out of fucking everything. You get 2 or 3 tracks, but do some career mode and unlock. It's I'm sure one of these days I'll dedicate time to doing it to one of those games. Probably ATV Quad Power Racing 2 on GameCube, but this, nah, just give me fucking everything from the start. And yeah, it's not bad, actually. There were, of course, a handful of these on the PS2, and maybe I'll get them all. I found it amusing. Another PS2 game. This one I got in September. ATV I got in August. This is a Triple Play 2002. This is, of course, when EA actually still made baseball games, when they had the MLB license. And this was the last Triple Play, because after this they made MVP Baseball. And then once they lost the license, they made a MVP NCAA baseball, and then they just stopped with that because it didn't sell. Unlike other EA Sports titles, this one actually did come out in 2002, which is pretty amusing. And of course, this was also on the original Xbox, not on the GameCube, unfortunately. But this is actually really fun. I actually found it to be more balanced and fair than some other baseball games AI. And I wouldn't mind playing another game of this. I sat down, played a full 9-inning game, I was like, this is actually pretty well made and enjoyable. I would say it's almost a shame EA doesn't make baseball games, but, knowing the way they are now, who knows how they would fucking do it. But, yeah, decent game, actually. Let's see, Game Boy Advance, I guess. Here we have Sonic Advance on the Game Boy Advance. If I already talked about this last episode, forgive me, but basically the ordeal with this is, of course I've had this game for years and years and years, but I had the PAL version. I wanted the North American version. Now, of course, it doesn't necessarily matter, because, Game Boy Advance is region-free, but I still wanted the North American version, so there it is. I definitely got to beat this, and definitely one of the Sonic Advance games in general, and this one's, of course, really good, I think the whole trilogy is, of course, just really good in general, despite some, level design quirks that just don't sit well with, Sonic fans. But, yeah, of course, introduce all things. It had Amy, who would have ever seen that coming? Amy playable in a 2D Sonic game. Then we have Top Spin 2 on the Game Boy Advance. First Top Spin game. Of course, I primarily remember seeing Top Spin games, at EB Games for the Xbox 360, and here's the one they had on the Game Boy Advance. I don't know, it's not bad, but honestly, I sometimes feel like I'm not in control of the player, when I'm trying to, just swing a racket. When I'm serving, it's fine, but again, just moving around, I feel like almost something's automated, and just something's off when I'm playing this. I don't know how to describe it, but Yeah, there it is, Top Spin 2. Maybe check it out, I don't know. And we have for the Game Boy Color, the first Game Boy Color game I bought since January, which that one was Ken Griffey Jr.'s Slugfest, and this one I bought in August. This is Mia Hamm's Soccer Shootout. This game is really, really weird. Just its pace, its physics, its everything. It's just off the walls. It's almost kind of funny. We ought to do a watch us play on this because it's pretty amusing. I think it's more amusing than it is like a solid good game. But, you know, I needed a soccer game on the Game Boy Color, so, yeah, there's that. Okay, what else? I guess we can talk about this briefly, why not? Here we have Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. This is another game I've owned for a while. I've had this since, like July of 2012, and like the same month or the month before, that's when I actually got my Sega Genesis. In fact, here's my copy. Can you tell the difference? I'm sure you probably can, and I'm sure you know this, but it's worth repeating for the sake of context. The obviously most common version of this game is the one that says not for resale. If you look at the cart, it also says not for resale. Something that, well, eventually I just grew sick of, and, you know, while I always had my eyes on the not for resale version, which as you can see there's the cartridge, it just wasn't something that was a high priority. Good thing is the manual. This is actually from the previous version I owned, but it's good that the manual doesn't say not for resale on it, so thank Christ for that, because this copy I bought did not come with a manual. So how did I get my copy? Well, it's simple. At a game store that I typically go to quite a bit, they had this. And they were selling it for $25. And needless to say, I picked it up immediately. So they were, of course, charging $25, but I managed to get it for $20 because they did not have a manual for it. You know, they didn't have any spare manuals or anything, so regardless, I was able to get it off $5 cheaper. And, you know, I'm sure that they had other copies. I know that they had the, you know, not for resale, just the cart. You know, they had that plenty of times, but of course this, you know, actually being in the case where it doesn't say not for resale on it, it's a little bit more uncommon. But again, I still think that the huge price tag and the huge price gap for this version is complete fucking bullshit. Copies are out there. Again, I know, of course, everyone and their mother bought it, you know, got it with the Sega Genesis. It's still bullshit. I mean, there is, of course, another variation, you know, the Sega Classic Edition, which actually has, like, a red banner that, you know, that the Genesis games from, like, 93 and onwards had. You know, rather than this packaging. But, yeah. And of course, like I said, there's a cartridge again. I have it out there to show you. But as I was watching Pete Dorr's streams, I noticed that this game, this variation, I should say, of Sonic 1, is starting to charge, like, stupid prices. Like, people are starting to charge, like, $200, $150 for this, which makes no fucking sense. Like, come on, I understand about rare variations and whatnot, you know, and, like, in some cases how, like, of course, PS1 greatest hits are obviously much less desirable than the Black Label variations, but in the case of this, you're not fucking fooling anyone. This game, as recent as like a month, 2 months, 3 months ago, was still selling, this variation I should say, was still selling for like more or less the same price as the not for resale version. Okay, like, of course most people had the not for resale version because most versions were packed with the Genesis, but don't tell me for one fucking second that this is worth that kind of money. That's like if people charged like fucking, you know, $80 for the Mario 1 standalone cart, the one that doesn't come with Mario Duck Hunt. It makes no fucking sense why this variation suddenly is, like, worth so fucking much. Like, shame on you, people, charging that kind of price. Jesus fucking Christ. There is actually a rare variation, a really hard to find variation, that actually, from 96, I believe, that has the ESRB E for Everyone rating. So that one's actually really tough to find. But this, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Sonic 1 is still a really good game, you know. Obviously not as good as Sonic 1 and 2, but it's definitely still a very good, solid platformer, even if, of course, it's, you know, shift in tone was, like, still unforgivable. He gave us Green Hill Zone and then Marble Zone. Marble Zone's tolerable, but again, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Okay, here's one that I actually have a bit to say of, more so the story of it, around it, rather than the game. This is Air for the Sega Dreamcast. Of course, it's a visual novel that started out on the PC and got ported to the Dreamcast, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation Portable, and the PlayStation Vita. And I'm pretty sure, like, Android and mobile and shit like that. Now, I haven't bought a visual novel since October of 2016, and the last time I did that was a boxed copy of Doki Doki Sesete on the Game Boy Color. You know, I just kind of, like, bought visual novels back in the day just because they were, like, funny, you know, amusing. Maybe we'd do, like, watch us plays on them. I even at one point planned on doing like a big review of like a whole bunch of them and some other Japanese like exclusive games, but that never happened. You can actually hear me even talking about that in some of the oldest gaming pickups vids. So why did I buy this? Well, basically, I've known about this game for a while. I've known about it when I was in early 2015 researching a bunch of Japanese Dreamcast games. And I just wrote this one off as just another visual novel. So this was like in 2015. Then in 2017, when I was browsing speedrun.com, right, and I was noticing, of course, Cosmic, of course, very big Mario 1 speedrunner, you know, somebody I watch on Twitch all the time. And I was seeing some of the other things he was a mod for. And he was a mod for a Mario 1 ROM hack called Air. When I first heard about that ROM hack, I made a joke saying, oh, this is based off of Air, the visual novel, ha ha ha. But then very recently, earlier this year, like 6 months ago, I actually did find out it was actually based off of this visual novel. The way you can tell is because there's a little poem on the cover of the game and also on the disc right there. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'll read it out to you. The poem says, the days which are wrapped in the scene of summer, and to pass gently, an encounter with the girls repeated in the sunlight. Summer continues to wear as well, she is waiting in the air. Obviously a poem that makes no sense, probably a case where they did a literal translation rather than, you know, a proper translation, but yeah, like, what the hell is that? Anyways, that poem is actually on the title screen of the Mario 1 ROM hack Air. So that pretty much is a dead giveaway that ROM hack is actually based off of this game. And what's more baffling is that ROM hack came out in 2001. That's so freaking recent, you know, compared to the release of this game. Now, the Dreamcast version came out in 2001, and I believe on PC came out a year later, but that just still baffled the hell out of me that a ROM hack that old, you know, was made off of just some random-ass visual novel that, of course, you know, doesn't in any way relate to Mario 1. So, of course, as a result, I was like, okay, now I actually have to get this game 4 years later after knowing about it. Oh my god, and, you know, the game, it's like whatever, you know, you don't know what's going on, you press things, some guy who, like, you know, does a puppet show, is trying to find some girl in the air. Why is she waiting in the air? That's pretty fucking complicated. How's he gonna get up there? Just wait somewhere more, you know, practical, you fucking thought. But yeah, it's because of that story why I just needed this, so. Yeah, it's also my third Japanese Dreamcast game, you know, behind Wind, A Breath of Heart, and Kana and other visual novels, so yeah, how about that? Yeah, I definitely spent the majority of this talking about Air. Of course, there's other things we do need to still talk about, but hey, you know, this is a decent stopgap video, I guess. We'll talk about Mario Maker 2 next episode.